Hello and welcome to Thinking Aloud from WPNC and Go Donate, the podcast where we get together and share our thoughts about fundraising, advertising and more. We're here to help charities find new donors, keep existing ones, and make the donation process easier than ever. If you like what you hear, we'd love to chat. All our details are in the bio.
Hi everyone and welcome to Thinking Aloud, and today it's the creatives talking to you, which we're very excited about. I'm Maria Phillips, Director of TV and Film at WPNC, and I'm here with my lovely partner Polly Jones, who's our Creative Director. And today's podcast, which I hope you're going to find interesting, is all about upcycling footage, how you can take footage that you've got already and turn it into a wonderful new TV advert. We've got 6 tips for you today. But before we get into them, Polly, why don't you just begin by telling us a little bit more about what do we mean by upcycling?
I think that's a really good question, because when we first chatted about this, we said, oh, it's a bit like recycling. But I think it's actually bigger than that. It's more than just a trendy word for recycling. It's about turning something old and a bit tired into something that's better, exciting and new. The type of upcycling we're talking about today means taking old or unused footage from a past shoot, or even amateur footage that someone captured on the shoot or somewhere else, like a charity worker or a family member, and turning it into a whole new ad. I think this makes sense for a lot of reasons, especially in the charity sector. If you're not sure you can afford a full shoot, it's definitely a more cost-effective way to get onto TV. And in some cases, saving money really is the right thing to do, especially if it's for a charity. And Maria, I just wanted to say, upcycling is also a great way to create social videos or other assets too. Anyway, enough of the theory. Maria, what's your top upcycling tip?
Okay, so tip number 1, Polly, is think in advance. And it's probably the most important tip we'll give you today, because you need the footage to reuse again, to upcycle. And the time to think about that is when you're setting up a TV shoot. Now, we all know, if you've been experienced in making TV ads, setting it up takes a lot of time and effort. So the key thing is not just to shoot enough footage, but to shoot lots of footage, extra footage as well, that may not be even in your storyboard or even in your script. And if you've got that footage, then there are things you can do in the future to really help from a re-editing point of view or creating a new advert. So in terms of getting that extra footage, well, a simple way is have 2 cameras, for example, rather than 1. It's not much more costly to get a second camera person in. And what you can do is then get lots of rich footage that can be used in lots and lots of different ways. And B-roll footage, which we use quite a lot, has proved very, very important to us when we've been upcycling an existing ad or remaking an existing ad. Then another tip that we would say about thinking in advance is you might have a case study-led ad, which is, quite a common approach for DRTV. Rather than filming just one case study, why not consider filming 2 strong case studies? Save one for future purpose. So you've got the footage in the can. You don't need to edit it now. But when your first case study-led ad begins to tire slightly, you don't have to go out and find another case study, because we know how long that takes to get and set up and get permissions. So that's something to think about. The other thing to think about is even if you're shooting in, let's say, summertime, keep half an eye out on the possible Christmas version that might be coming up later on. We all know Christmas DRTV ads tend to do very well. It's a great time of year to ask people for funds. So one very simple thing you could do, and we've done it a lot, is we would shoot our ad and then we would set up some of the scenes again by adding some extra, perhaps Christmas decorations or winter clothing. And then you can write your Christmas script later on, but you've actually got the footage in the can, which is the important thing. And finally, in this particular tip, don't forget, we're all budding video camera people because we've got them on our phone. So don't forget, you've got your phone and you can always get extra footage from it. And you could perhaps use it in a digital medium, for example. So these are all things to think about in advance. And I'm going to hand over to you now, Polly, for tip number 2.
Tip number 2, it's about taking a step back and being really clear about what you need when you're making your upcycled ad. What do you actually want is the first question. Is it just a few extra shots you need for the refresh, say, for example, for a Christmas version? Or is it about finding enough footage to create what feels like a whole new ad? Basically, to do this and to find the footage you need to be prepared to trawl, and that can take some time. And it's also sometimes important to remember that if something was rejected in the first place, it might be that it doesn't work. But more than often, there's actually plenty there to make something that feels fresh and new.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. For DRTV, you just need a few really magic shots. So it's a little bit needle in a haystack, but when you find those really strong shots, they can just add so much to a DRTV ad.
As we've found many a time in real life, there are those magic moments that we've overlooked before. It might be something on the B-roll footage, it might even be something that someone's captured on their phones, or something that just works really well with the title screens. But there's always magic there to be found.
Absolutely. And yeah, just to add to that point, I think B-roll footage, so possibly sort of background shots of, landscape or panning around a room or something like that. That's really useful if you've got title screens. We've found just a fairly simple, plain background to put some really strong titles against. Getting that message across and the response. Okay, moving on from that, we're on tip 3 now. You might find your magical footage in the unlikeliest of places. So obviously, the starting point could be, oh, yes, let me look through all the DRTV ads that we've shot, the raw footage, etc., etc. But actually, we have found that you can get some great stuff from more unlikely places. So talk to your events team, for example. Often in fundraising events or dinners or something like that, there's like a film or a fundraising film to its audience. And from there, often there can be some really nice footage that hasn't seen the light of day in a TV advert. Look at your social assets. If you're an overseas charity, for example, I know vlogs from the field can be something quite useful and interesting to dive deep on. We've worked with Medicine Sans Frontières in the past, and they've got some fantastic video diaries, if you like, from their doctors working in the field. And that footage can come in really, really handy for editing. And as Polly, you mentioned before, footage that's captured on mobile phone, etc., there might be something there. Now, I would say don't worry too much about the quality because it can be cleaned up. There are tools that can really clean it up. But also, if it's a little bit ropey, if it's a little bit rough and ready, that can really add an extra emotional and urgent element to your TV ad. It can really help it feel sort of documentary-wise. So don't dismiss it because you feel it's not going to be broadcast quality. If in doubt, ask your agency just to check it out. But yeah, don't say no just because the footage isn't as sharp as it could be.
Yeah, just jumping in here, I think that it can really add authenticity to an ad, having footage that doesn't feel too slick. So I think it can be a real bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And actually, an ad that looks too slick and looks too well put together and too well art directed in this day and age, it doesn't feel real. And we all know everything that we do, all the fundraising we do is about storytelling and authenticity. So yeah, really good point.
Yeah.
But also what we started looking into is we wouldn't say make a whole ad out of it, but if you've got some strong stills, that's another thing that you can think about adding into your edit. Sometimes a still can be a very powerful kind of snapshot, if you like, of a really important moment in the ad. And also, these days, it is possible to do camera moves to the stills to give them a little bit of life if you're worried about it being too static. So, yeah, look at your best images from your photo library. And of course, don't forget, there's always ways you can supplement your video footage from photo agencies like Getty or other stock footage or news media organizations. But do check usage, as some news media is only for editorial and you can't use it in an advertising capacity. So there's lots of other areas to look for your footage, not just going through your DRTV files. Right, tip 4, Polly. What's the next one?
Do you know what, Maria? I know TV is a visual medium, but it's not actually all about the footage. Despite what we say, I think that VO plays a really, really important role. And actually, when it comes to upcycling, capturing an extra round of the VO can add extra life and value to your ad. It means you can make a second ad that feels quite different. All you really have to do is plan ahead. So if you're recording a VO in, say, June, and you know that you're likely to make a Christmas ad, then just squeeze in a few extra asks, Christmas-related asks, couple of Christmas-related, wild lines, just in case, so you've got them in the bag. If you're creating a slightly different Christmas ad, you've got that Christmas messaging to support it. Also, if you've got a really good artist, they normally book by the hour, but they rarely take that long. Often, if they're really professional, they can take under half an hour. So make the most of your time, plan ahead, think about future upcycling opportunities, and try to grab any extra wild lines that you think would be useful. Obviously, your agency can write those extra lines and put them into the script. So yes, it might be if you're testing cache and RG or different prompts or different calls to action, or they're going to be different phone numbers, you can do that in that session. It's also really nice to record a thank you message, and this might not go on TV. It might be something that lives online or is sent to the donor afterwards. And it's not all about an artist in a recording studio. You can also refresh your ad by perhaps getting a new VO from a charity worker. You could send some lines and get them to record them themselves, or somebody else who's involved in the story.
Again, that adds to the authenticity, doesn't it? It's not a sleek professional voiceover artist. It's somebody who's really involved in your charity, in your organisation.
Yeah, it's coming from the heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're on the subject of audio, let's move on to tip 5, which is music. And music is something that we are very, very, very interested in when we create our DRTV ads. In fact, sometimes we begin with a piece of music. And it's a very simple way to upcycle an existing DRTV ad or to change it slightly. You might want to put a few different shots in, but if you change the piece of music, it can just transform it and it can feel very, very different. And it gives it a completely different pace. So that's something to think about. Should you think about changing your music? Now, I know we all think, oh, music costs a lot. Oh, I don't know. Am I getting it composed, or where do I get it from? What about permissions, rights, etc., etc.? But we can actually get some great music and it doesn't cost a lot. So, for example, a well-known song by an artist who really respects and values your charity, or who has personal experience of your cause and subject matter, they can be really good people to go to and get a very special deal. And they may even give you it rights free. It's happened to us in the past. So you don't know until you ask. But you will need permission from various sources. So it's not just the writers, it's the owners, the publishers. So you do need to think about it in advance because it will take time.
Yeah.
Another thing to think about is that a copyright ends 70 years from the composer's death or when it was first published. So you've got a wonderful kind of portfolio of, for example, classical music that you don't have to get permissions for in terms of the copyright. Obviously, you need to get permissions for the recordings that you're using, but that cuts costs there. And then, do you have or do you know any budding composers? Because somebody who's just starting out in the business and is just trying to sort of get a break in doing music soundtracks might be interested in giving you a very, very good deal just to get that sort of experience, if you like, on that platform for your advert. And we've been approached in the past by budding musicians who want to have a go at re-recording or recomposing a fundraising piece of music. And that's really nice because you're helping them, but you're also getting a great piece of music and it's not costing a lot. And of course, there's always library music. Library music is a fantastic source and we use it in a lot of our ads because it's not expensive. And there's quite a lot of music that almost feels like it's been written for a DRTV advert.
Really good library music, actually. People can be quite negative about it, but I think you can do a proper trawl. It's also possible to edit it a bit if it doesn't, so it works with the ups and downs.
Yeah, absolutely right. And yeah, I mean, if you find them, they're absolutely great because some of the ones literally start sad and then uplift and then perhaps move down again, which is the kind of thing that we would be looking for in a DRTV ad. So definitely go look through the music libraries. And then our final tip, I'm going to hand over to you, Polly.
I realized something really shocking today. Did you know, Maria? It's only 230 shopping days until Christmas.
Oh, my goodness.
230. And of course, I will leave it till the last day. But just like Christmas shopping, it actually is really smart to start early and start thinking about your Christmas ads early, because Christmas is a really good time to fundraise. And I think for many charities, it really, really makes sense. It's a really emotional time of year. It's a giving time of year. But at the same time, this doesn't mean having to film a whole new ad. If you have a really good ad already, it's possible to add a little festive sparkle to it. It could be seasonal graphics, it could be music, or it could be those Christmas wild lines that we were talking about capturing earlier. And as Maria was saying, you could just add a different piece of music, a more Christmassy piece of music to give it that kind of Christmas emotional feel. Another thing that we've done in the past to create something that feels more Christmassy is to use generic winter footage. So it might be some falling snow or something like that, you know, a sort of a dark night. Once again, if you are making a Christmas ad, you'll probably find that you have some useful footage already. Sometimes a charity might have something on their website, or their social team might have captured something. So it's really good to look around at other sources at Christmas time too. And another thing to think about at Christmas time is if you've got a proposition that's working really well in, say, DM or press, you might be able to marry that messaging up with footage that you've already got to create a Christmas ad that really kind of leverages that proposition at Christmas time.
That whole tip is a really interesting one, I think. I think a good example that I've had a personal experience of it is we work with the Salvation Army and we make their Christmas ads. And one of the themes that we use is homelessness at Christmas. And they very sharp-sightedly, it was themselves that did it. It wasn't through us. There was some really bad weather one January, way after Christmas, late January, early February, and it was snowing. And the Salvation Army's film unit went out on the streets. They found some actors to be homeless people and filmed them. And it was really powerful footage because you were seeing people really struggling on the streets in snow in wintertime. And then that footage was put on hold until it was needed. Fast forward to November when we started editing the ad. It was a fantastically useful footage to have for our Christmas appeal. And the ad did really well because it just showed how bleak and cold and wintry it is being on the streets at Christmas time. That was real foresight from the Salvation Army's point of view. Right then, I think that's it, Polly, isn't it? We've rattled through 6 tips. Hopefully we've now inspired you to look at all your rich material, your source material, and think, can we upcycle a nice sparkling new TV ad out of what we've got? And just to say, if you want to share anything with us at WPNC, we're always happy to look at footage. We're always happy to give a view, advise, because we just love making new things out of old things, don't we, Polly?
I think, absolutely. And I think even if you're not sure about something, there are always ways of kind of weaving it into some magic. So yeah, please share because we're always up for the challenge.
We are. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up now. Thank you for listening. We hope you found it useful. We will be back soon with another podcast in our series.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope you found that useful. To hear upcoming Thinking Aloud podcasts, subscribe now. And if you think we could help you, get in touch. Our details are in the bio.